Most Minecraft builds don't fail because of shape, they fail because of color. Same structure, same blocks, but completely different results. The difference isn't taste, it's control. Today, I'm going to show you how to control color in Minecraft using value, saturation, and harmony so that your builds feel intentional instead of just loud. This is not an art class, but by the end of the video, my goal is to help you make decisions on picking colors that you will be happy with for your builds immediately. When every surface is bright, your eyes don't really know where to land. Nothing feels important and everything competes with itself. But when color is controlled, your attention can become guided. One focal point, one story. Color doesn't just guide attention, but it sets emotion. One room can feel warm and cozy, and another room can feel moody. So color isn't just decoration, it can change how your structure feels. And most builders never learn how to control it. And that's what we're going to fix. Saturation is the intensity of a color, or how loud it feels. Minecraft gives us a lot of very loud colors, with concrete and wool, and loud can be powerful, but only when it's rare. Like we saw earlier, when this entire wall is saturated, nothing really stands out and your eyes don't know where to look. But when you limit your saturation, it can become direction and tell the viewer where to look. For example, you can see how the high saturation of the subscribe button immediately pulls your eyes towards it. That's not an accident. When we take a look at one color, you can see how this can apply in Minecraft. We have a gradient here, and all these blocks contain a different value of red. As you move towards the higher saturation, I want you to think of it as builds like cartoonish or maybe a little more fake in general. As we lower the saturation levels, we can start to get vibes that feel a little more real. This build was made to look realistic, so I used lower saturation on the color. This build was made to have more of a fantasy vibe, so you can see that I used higher saturation levels, and that those higher saturation levels can guide your eyes to points. Let's quickly talk about value. Value controls the brightness or darkness of the color. You can see here as we lower our value, we're moving towards darker blocks. But as we lowered our saturation, we were moving towards lighter blocks. In this build, I was mostly just playing around with colors for fun, but you can kind of notice that I changed the value level of the block and brought brighter blocks towards the light source. So you'll notice in here where the light's not hitting, I used darker blocks, and around behind the build, I used darker blocks as well as the light's not hitting it. You can use value to create depth in your builds and give it a little more personality and almost like a story behind it. If I were to convert this build to grayscale and take out all the color, you would see shadows here and you would see a lighter part of the build here. Your build should be able to read in grayscale like this, and you should be able to tell where the lights and shadows are. I will typically think in value first in order to get my shadows and structure down, and then I'll think in saturation, and after that I'll get into color harmony. Color harmony just means that some colors naturally cooperate with each other, and some colors can fight for attention. In Minecraft, harmony isn't about knowing every single scheme, it's about choosing a system that works and being able to pick from the color wheel. First, let's talk about monochromatic colors, which just means one color family. Not one block, but one color family. This works incredibly well for realism and calmer builds. Here you can see we have a brown monochromatic color gradient, and here we have a grayscale gradient. If you want a build to feel grounded, start here. Analogous colors sit next to each other on the color wheel. They're easy on the eyes because they show up constantly in nature. Think of greens for grass and trees, blues for the sky. Analogous palettes are forgiving and can be great for large areas. Complementary colors sit opposite each other on the color wheel. They create contrast, but work well together. The mistake that most builders make is that they will use both of these colors equally, a 50-50. You can see how this build from earlier uses complementary colors. However, the purple color dominates, while the yellow color is just there to draw attention. You can see how a village full of the houses like this, with a bunch of these yellow mushrooms around it, might be a really cool looking base, and a great use of complementary colors. Complementary colors are some of the easiest harmonies to pull off, and I highly recommend starting there. You can see the building behind me is another good example of complementary colors with red and green at a very desaturated level. Split complementary colors can give you more flexibility and variety. Instead of one opposite, you're using two opposite neighbors. This lets you add variety without chaos. You want one dominant base and two supporting accents. Again, never an equal 1/3 split. Remember that most Minecraft palettes will fail for one reason: too many colors trying to be important. If you're unsure, remove colors until the build makes sense again. So go ahead and pick one harmony, control your value, limit your saturation, and that's how your build is going to start feeling intentional and real. Once you understand the color system, you can start to put it all together and make decisions that will end up with pleasing looking builds. Let's talk about Minecraft limitations and how we can apply this better to Minecraft. You can see here that I've laid out almost all the blocks in the game. The real limitation that Minecraft poses is all these gaps within this gradient. So you can see we have lighter blocks down here, moving towards darker blocks here, and we have the different colors sectioned out. All the gaps in here are basically missing colors. You can see, especially in the greenish yellow area, we're kind of lacking in blocks in Minecraft right now. And that's why when you hear builders talk about new colors coming out, they get excited because we're slowly filling in more of these gaps. Now, even though we are limited to these blocks, I think Minecraft has done a really good job at giving us a lot of options. You can see that it gets denser towards the middle, which just means that we have a lot of grayscale options, and it's very easy to transition from lighter to darker blocks as you take the color out. But once you start thinking of blocks as colors rather than what they're made of or what they're named, then you can take your building to a whole nother level. Let's talk about stained glass and how you can use it to create a better transition flow between two blocks. If we are trying to move up in saturation between two red blocks, but the change looks kind of harsh, we can use red stained glass like this to kind of ease that transition. And you'll notice that if we step back far enough, the transition between this block looks a lot smoother than the transitions between these blocks, and you can kind of see the sharp line between these two blocks still. Obviously, as you get closer, this can look kind of weird for certain builds, so you'll want to do this mostly on things that people will be looking at from far away, and you can also overdo this, so be careful. However, light stained glass is probably one of the most underrated things that most builders are not using right now. If you are still struggling to pick out certain colors, there is a mod called Axiom that will help you to pick these out a lot easier. And you're probably asking why I didn't show you this earlier, but I wanted to make sure that you guys understood the concepts of color before using this. So let's say we did want to use a monochromatic brown color and we wanted to go from this light concrete powder to the black terracotta. If we go into our menu tab, you'll see that Axiom has given us a gradient helper and a color picker. If we go to the color picker and we maybe want orange, then you can kind of see how you can get your light orange color. Then you can move the value down to get a darker orange color. And then if we take that light and dark color into the gradient helper, we can put it in as the inputs, and Axiom will give us suggested blocks to finish out that gradient. And you can see that you can change the blocks here. This can work for all kinds of colors and gradients, and even transition you between multiple different colors. Axiom is a really cool building tool, and I definitely recommend you check it out. Good color isn't about finding the perfect block. It's about making fewer, clearer decisions. When value is controlled and when your saturation has a purpose, your build will stop feeling noisy and, more importantly, stop feeling stressful to design. Color is something you develop an eye for, not by memorizing good colors, but by learning color theory and good decision making. If you want feedback on your builds or you want to practice thinking this way with other builders, there's a small Discord linked below where we give build advice and work on becoming better builders together. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.